Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
We live and we learn, or at least I hope we're learning. Dedicated to learning. With the discovery of new things here in the new year. Hell, that's what this show is about. Learning something new, trying to expand our knowledge. And of course, my friends at the Great Courses Plus have got you covered. The Great Courses Plus is an online learning service that offers thousands of lectures covering everything from the history of religions to learning sign language to brain science to understanding cryptocurrency, taught by the best professors and experts from top universities and institutions around the world, and streaming right into your life on your schedule. I myself have been enjoying Dr. Roy Benarock's lecture series. It's called The Skeptic's Guide to Health, Medicine, and the Media, because we're navigating all of the fake or false or dubious health claims out there. It gets into everything from fad drugs to weight loss to toxins to the media's role in spreading good and bad information to the public. It's a great series if you're a skeptic. Set a goal to learn more this year. Sign up for the Great Courses Plus today. They got a great offer for my listeners this month. 3 months of unlimited access for just $30. That's only $10 a month. But to get this limited time offer, you have to sign up today using my special URL. Get all the details at thegreatcoursesplus.com/Seth. Remember, thegreatcoursesplus.com/Seth. There's video of this exchange that you're about to hear, the YouTube link in the description box of the broadcast. Armin Navabi, been a friend of mine for a lot of years, and I want to prepare you, and I don't think he'd mind me preparing you in this way, but if you don't know Armin, he is like a machine gun of information. He is a rapid-fire communicator, drawing the water from the well as quickly as you can. It's a bit jarring, I think, for some people, because he has so much that he wants to say, and he's just throwing it out at you in short order. And that's what this 1 hour plus conversation is that I'm asking Armin Navabi about his perspective, because he is from Iran. He is well versed in Iran. He knows what's going on over there, and you can absorb it. You can agree. You can disagree. I mean, that's the point, right? His is a perspective. I'm not presenting Armin as guest because this is truth, because he was born in Iran. I realize that we all have something to bring to this conversation, but other perspectives allow us to inform our own perspective. And I really do think Armin Navabi's perspective here has a lot to offer us. And so this is my conversation with Armin Navabi, the founder of Atheist Republic and one of the hosts of the Secular Jihadists podcast. Armin Navabi, great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So your concern is that many in the West have gotten this story wrong. I'll just start there. What are we getting wrong about Iran?
Well, I don't know where to start. There's so many different things, but I think a lot of people don't have the background information on what the agenda of all the different players in the area, and also United States, and also all the other influencers are. And I think the roots behind these conflicts goes many years back. And so that's why without that background, people are coming out with some hot takes that is really out there and pretty wrong, obviously wrong. And it's also very interesting because, there are a lot of people that I follow and I trust until they start talking about a topic that you know a little bit more about, and you see how wrong they're getting it, which reminds me that, wait, I have to be skeptical about the other stuff that they're saying about the thing.
Well, I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking about like back in the 70s when the hostages were taken, before the 70s when all of this tension was going on? I mean, start me somewhere. Let's call a beginning somewhere, okay?
All right, let's do 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran. The Pahlavi dynasty falls. The Ayatollahs come into power. And there was, right after the revolution, the Islamic Revolution, when the monarchy was removed, and for the first time in thousands of years of Iran's history, the country didn't have a king anymore, right? It was a monarchy until 1979 for thousands of years. But for right after the revolution, there was a time that this government, the Ayatollah's government, the Islamic Republic, still was a possibility for them to have a relationship with the United States. That wasn't completely off the table, even though one of the main things, the problems they have with the Shah, the Pahlavi dynasty, was the fact that it was the point that they were making that he's a puppet of the imperialist West, the United States. But still, there was a chance that they could still have a relationship with the United States until they went and attacked. Some students went and attacked the embassy of the United States in Tehran. And Khomeini backed it up, and he supported that. And that was the end of the relationship between Iran and the United States, right?
Okay, so, I'm going to interrupt occasionally just because I want to plant a flag here. Hang on. So is this mark the time when Iran was call it a democracy? I mean, there are photographs, right, of even your own mother when before she was forced by the Islamic theocracy to cover up and not be a part of the professional world in that way. Does this mark that change, the cultural change in Iran?
Yes. And that the forced hijab took a little while after the revolution, but then it was forced. I mean, the revolution, when it began, it wasn't an Islamic revolution. It was mostly about other grievances, but because the mullahs were the most organized one, they took advantage of the power vacuum and they turned it into an Islamic revolution, right? So a lot of the women that all of a sudden realized that all the rights were going to be taken away, a lot of them were actually protesting against the monarchs. And now I remember my mom telling me that when she was watching Khomeini on TV coming in to Tehran from his exile back to Iran, she was in the hospital. She was the nurse. She was watching on the TV, and she said, we're all screwed. In a more, I don't know if I could swear on this show.
As much as you want.
She said, we're fucked, right? And everybody looked at her, and the next day that she came back to the hospital, they had her name on a banner saying, Whores of the West. Her name, along with some other people, other nurses' names, was up there. But this was right after the revolution. If she said the same thing a couple of years later, she would probably be arrested or executed, right? So, but they weren't yet that control. They didn't have that grip yet at the beginning. But anyways, we're getting off track. The point is that. So by the way, when 40 years ago, when the Islamic Republic took over the embassy of the United States in Tehran, they took all the people that were working there, they took them hostage, right? Some of them managed to escape. Canada helped. But the people that they took hostage, the Americans that they took hostage, were 52 of them. And this is why Trump recently said that if Iran retaliates against the United States killing of Soleimani, Trump said that he has 52 places in Iran, targets at 52 places that he's going to bomb with missiles, and the number 52 was meant to be symbolic of what happened 40 years ago. But we'll get back to Trump's tweet because this whole thing comes full circle. But the thing is that when Khomeini was the leader of the Islamic Republic before Khamenei, he was the leader of the Islamic Revolution. And I don't know. I think most people know that he changed history, not just in Iran but all around the Middle East, right? So, but his Islamic Revolution in Iran was not meant to be, in his vision and his followers' vision, was not meant to be an Iranian revolution. It was meant to be an Islamic revolution. A lot of people don't understand that Khomeini himself was against nationalism. He never had any emotion towards Iran as a country, right? For him, it was Islam above Iran, right? And he was against nationalism, but the problem for him was that Iranians are extremely nationalist, like they're patriotic. I know those terms are different.
I get what you mean. I get you.
Yeah. But so when the Iran-Iraq happened shortly after the revolution, they didn't want to, but they realized that they can't just use religious narratives to push people to go volunteer to fight against Saddam. They mixed religious narratives with, nationalism, and they came up with an Islamic version of a Shia Islam version of nationalism to get people to go fight the war. So, but again, this was against Khomeini's wishes. The point of the Islamic Revolution was for this whole movement. This was a movement, not just like taking Iran away from the Shah. This was supposed to be an Islamic revolution that takes over all the Islamic world. Khomeini saw himself as somebody that would eventually become like a pope figure that would lead the Islamic world, right? And that dream never came true. And he was always very grumpy about it until like after the Iran-Iraq war. This is something that he died with all those visions coming true. But after he died, Khamenei took that mission, and he managed to make it come true thanks to the United States. They tried it for many years before the toppling of Saddam, but they didn't get that far. Like the place that they were the most successful was in Lebanon. With Hezbollah in Lebanon, but that was pretty much it. But Khamenei managed to make Khomeini's dream come true, and they call it exporting the revolution. So exporting the Islamic revolution beyond Iran's borders, right? But when Saddam fell, this was like a gift that the United States just put on a silver plate and just gave to Iran, right? Because for 40 years. Under Saddam, Iran has been trying to use all the Shia, networks that it has in Iraq to grow its roots and its influence all over Iraq, right? So when you remove that, power that is controlling, that is oppressing all the Shias all over Iraq, all of a sudden, all the investments that the Iranian government had made in Iraq for 40 years was just waiting there to take all that, to take advantage. That's why it was so easy for Iran's government to be able to build a whole bunch of different proxy groups right after the fall of Saddam. And for me, I remember when Saddam fell, I was watching the news a couple of, weeks or months after, and I saw in Baghdad, they were raising posters of Khomeini and Khamenei in Baghdad. Like, this is something that Iran, after 8 years of war with Saddam, they didn't even manage to get even close to something that overnight, I mean, I'm exaggerating overnight, but it was 8 years of war between Iran and Iraq. Khomeini didn't manage to get even close to something that United States just gave to Iran, right? So now if you look at what's happening around the Middle East, Iran has almost close to complete control over Iraq's government. It recently it went a little bit lower, but then now it's going to, I think, pick up again. It has control over Lebanon's government, at least the Hezbollah part of the Lebanon's government. It has a lot of control in Yemen, some influence in Bahrain, Syria. Assad owes everything to Iran for the fact that he's even alive today, and this is like a Shia empire that Khomeini wanted, but now Khamenei is getting. And the person that is responsible for building this Shia empire for Khamenei was Qasem Soleimani. he's called Khamenei's sword. It's not an exaggeration to say that it was one person. Usually sometimes people exaggerate, like, oh, it was this guy, and they ignore a lot of other things that was a major influence that for something happening. But it's not an exaggeration to say that if you remove Qasem Soleimani from the equation, a lot of this would not happen. Like, I know a lot of people are just are now for the first time hearing this guy's name, but this guy, for us that have been following stuff in the Middle East, he just popped out everywhere where he was needed. Like, every time there was a major conflict, he was there to make sure things that goes in the Islamic Republic's direction, and he was usually very successful at it. He was very strategic. He wasn't just a top general. He was way beyond that. I think it's also not an exaggeration to say after Khamenei, he was the most influential person in Iran's politics. A lot of people think it's the president, but the president is just a joke in Iran. It's just like a figurehead. It's like a symbolic figurehead that is just to give the illusion of democracy. He has nothing. There's nothing that the president can do without the approval of the supreme religious leader. So, and that's why they call it the fake democracy. It's just there for show. People's vote doesn't mean anything in Iran, right? Again, like, for example, Soleimani had more influence in Iran's foreign policy and what Iran's policy was compared to the foreign secretary himself, which is Zarif, which is picked by the president. He's supposed to be the person that makes decisions for Iran's foreign policy, but he was nobody compared to Qasem Soleimani and the decisions that he made, right? And I don't know how far you want to get into detail with the ideology, but the fact, okay, so see, this is something that bugs me a lot. A lot of people keep pointing out that United States is building building an empire, meddling in other people's country. This is like similar to British colonialism. Why are we there? Why are we doing this? And these are all legit concerns. But a lot of the same people keep making excuses for the Islamic Republic, and these same people don't ask. Wait, okay, so we're asking why are American soldiers in Iraq? But the same people don't ask, wait, what are Iranians doing in Iraq? Why are they there? This is not their country either. I wish there was a bit more consistency, because Iran's meddling in countries like Iraq and Lebanon and Syria and Yemen and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia is a lot worse than United States influence. Like, for example, United States I'm not supporting United States meddling in Iraq. That's complicated, and we could get into that. But United States has some military forces in Iraq with Iraq's permission to do what? To help with the excuse that we're here to fight ISIS. But the real reason the reason why they're there is to stop Iran from growing, right? Both Iran and the United States use ISIS as an excuse to be there, but both of them have different agendas there, and both of them don't want ISIS to completely be gone, because that's what gives them the excuse to be there. But Iran is way more. Iran in Iraq, for example, doesn't just have military militias like proxies, which it does have, but it's not just that. They're handpicking the politicians, right? People for a couple of months ago, we were saying this, and I remember doing a live stream on this, and a lot of people in the live stream think that we were exaggerating, that Iran doesn't have that much influence in Iraq's government. But then the CIA documents leaked. I don't know if you guys know about that. That showed how much of an influence Iran has over Iraq's government. And then more recently, when United States, so this whole tic for tac between Iran and United States started when Iranian proxies in Iraq killed a contractor in Iraq who was a U.S. citizen, and the United States responded by taking out a whole bunch of these proxies of Iran, Hashd Shabi and some other officers. And then Iran responded to that by using its proxies to attack United States embassy, right? So but when this United States embassy is in a place that's called the Green Zone. This is the most secure place in the Middle East. This is the United States embassy is the most secured embassy, not just the most secured United States embassy, it's the most secured embassy, period. Like, Americans working in Baghdad in United States embassy probably felt more safe than being in New York, right? That's how, even though they were in Baghdad, that area was a fly couldn't get in or out without the perimeter, So it was extremely secure, but most of the security was, Iraqi personnel, right? So, but when Iran's proxies stormed the embassy, all the security stood down, and they just managed to just walk right in, which was unbelievable. Like, to us, it showed that the Iraqi government was approving Iran's protests against the Americans in retaliation to United States attacking Iranian proxies. That showed the level of influence Iran has over the Iraqi government. So that was the second thing that showed that we were right. Another third thing, it was just recently where the Iraqi parliament unanimously voted to kick out Americans out of Iraq. But unanimously, because what? Because the Kurds and Sunnis didn't vote. But it showed that the Shias in parliament were completely loyal to Iran's interests in Iraq. This, again, one group of people that these commentators don't talk about usually online is we keep talking about Iran and United States, but the people that are completely being ignored here are the Iraqi citizens. Like, their government is not really representing them. Their whole country is being turned into a chessboard, a battleground between two different powers, and they're just paying all the costs. And it's like, can you guys all just leave and let us run our country again? But Iraqis are divided on this. Some Iraqis are saying that, especially the Sunnis and the Kurds, they want America to stay because they're afraid of Iranian influence. A lot of very religious Shia, Vilayat Faqih version of Shias are loyal to Iran, and they want Americans to leave. But a lot of other Iraqis are like, how about you both leave and let us run our country, right? So what I was saying is that the Iranians have a lot of influence in Iraq, but it's really hard to get rid of them because, for example, if Iraqi government wants, they could be like, okay, United States, you need to leave. You're causing a lot of trouble. Right now, it's difficult for Iraq to do that because they have a caretaker government, so they can officially remove United States permission until there's a new government voted in. But it's possible. It's possible to get rid of United States if the new government wants to. But it's almost impossible to get rid of Iran's influence because most of Iran's influence in Iraq is by Iraqi citizens who are loyal to the Vilayat Faqih back in Tehran. So how can you can't really get rid of Iraqis. Where are you going to tell Iraqi citizens to go? They're Iraqi citizens. That's their home, right? So Iran managed to, so this is why something like, I remember I was watching David Pacman, and he was saying that Trump is using this as an excuse to attack Iran. It wasn't Iran that attacked United States Embassy in Baghdad. These were all Iraqi citizens. Well, yeah, they're Iraqi citizens loyal to Iran. From around 300 terrorist attacks that has been done by the influence of Iran, less than 6 of them were by Iranian citizens. Iran is very careful not to use Iranian citizens to exert its influence around the Middle East. And Iran has an understanding with the United States. This is why this whole recent things are completely on a whole other level. Because before just the past few weeks, Iran and the United States had this understanding that, listen, we don't want to go to war with each other. We'll just poke at each other. It benefits us both. Keep poking at each other. But as long as I'm using my proxies against you, we have an understanding that we're not going to go to war with each other. So this is why this is a new escalation, because when Iran stormed the embassy in Baghdad, this was a new escalation by Iran, because this is the United States embassy is a U.S. soil, right? So again, I'm not going to make excuses for Trump overall, because I'm against Trump mostly because of his support of Saudi Arabia in Yemen. I think him and Obama both are war criminals for supporting Saudi Arabia in Yemen. But so I'm not like a Trump supporter. I just want to make that clear. But in this situation, a lot of people are talking about this decision that Trump made to take out Soleimani was not an easy decision to make, right? So a lot of people are saying Trump escalated this. It was Iran that escalated it first, because going after an embassy, this is the first time that Iranian proxy are going to attack U.S. soil. Again, the embassy and a country's embassy in another country is part of their country. So United States embassy in Baghdad is U.S. soil. So that was Iran had gotten away with a lot of poking without any response from the United States before this attack. And honestly, United States looked very pathetic and weak. Iran attacked Aramco in Saudi Arabia, which is a U.S. ally. Again, I'm not a defender of Saudi Arabia, but again, United States didn't respond to that, which made them look weak. Iran took down an American drone. United States didn't respond to that. Iran attacked a whole bunch of ships in the Persian Gulf. No response to that. So now Iran's proxies attacked a U.S. embassy. If you didn't respond to that, that would look extremely weak. Iran kept on saying that, Trump is just bluffing. He's just words. He never responds to us. He can't do shit. He can't do anything. That's what they were always saying. And they said when Trump said there's going to be a strong response to this, the Iranian officials kept saying, yeah, sure. That you always say that, but you don't do anything. So I think the Iranian officials were surprised for them to all of a sudden the number 2 person in the country was taken out. I think they were shocked for Trump to actually have a strong response to this.
Let me jump in.
Okay,
I mean, I've given you a ton of latitude because I wanted to get as much backstory as we could. All right.
Right.
To be sure I'm understanding, Iran essentially becomes an Islamic theocracy, right?
Right.
With Khomeini back in the 70s, who wasn't looking for necessarily an Islamic Iran, but an Islamic world in which he was a supreme leader.
Right.
All right. So I'm tracking there. We are seeing a tremendous bleed between the Iranians and the Iraqis, so much so that you really can't extricate them from each other. So you've got the Iraqi people who are influenced by Iran. You've got Iranians in Iraq making decisions, having influence over Iraqi's government, right?
Right.
That's that's probably a milkshake that you're not going to be able to get all the ingredients out of, right? Everything is already so deeply intertwined that we can't separate the two. Am I tracking there?
You're right. Perfect.
We have a history of sort of these tit-for-tat escalations between the United States and Iran. And Soleimani, who was a monster, was taken out. And you think the response is justified. And it very well may be. What I find frustrating is I'm somebody on the left. I've seen the extremes of the left, who were like lighting the candle and saying that they mourn the death of a human being or whatever. I mean, those are pretty rare. Most of the liberals I see are like, we know he was a monster. We don't trust Donald Trump. And I agree there. And that's, I think, where I fall. It's not that I think it may not have been the right move. I don't trust Donald Trump to make that move at the right time. I don't trust him to feed my cat is the problem. So, when it comes to military matters, I'm extremely dubious. I'm extremely skeptical. It may have been the right move at the right time to take this guy out. Is that your position as someone born in Iran? You think this was the move to strike now? You think, Trump, even by accident, was right on this score?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying this was the right decision. I'm saying this was a very difficult decision. Like, it was a damn if you do, damn if you don't. Like, if anybody in that position, they had to make a decision to respond in a way that was extremely strong and extremely damaging to Iran, and yet not strong enough for it to start a war.
Sure,
and
you
how
want
do you
to put them on notice, but you don't want to escalate to a degree where they feel like they have to pull out all the stops.
Right.
And now it's essentially at least partially a global conflict. I'm going to take a real short break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Armin Navabi about the martyr of Islam. Like, do these people, many of these people calling the shots who are sort of on the brink of war, on the other side of the chessboard, do they welcome death? Are they afraid of any threats that the United States might make against them? Or are they thinking, hey, bring on martyrdom because I get to go to heaven? We're going to start there and keep going with my special guest, Armin Navabi, right after this. This is a conversation between myself and Armin Navabi, born in Iran, once a devout Muslim, became an atheist, founded atheistrepublic.com, and is now co-host of the Secular Jihadists podcast. You can go to secularjihadists.com to see that. Right here, our conversation about Iran continues. If we're talking about an Islamic theocracy, is it a martyr culture? I mean, are the people making the decisions thinking, all right, all bets are off and we don't care if we die because we're going to meet Allah? No. Or do you think they're literally scared of dying?
Oh, no, they're definitely okay, so if Iranian government, so here's the thing, the way that theocracies work and other authoritarian government work is that they spread this idea that, oh, you guys go die for a good cause, but the people at the top, they don't want to die at all. And they don't want to die, and they don't want to lose any of their power. And if you look at the Iranian government, the groups that are suicidal like that, they don't last long, right? Like, if your entire ideology is like we're all going to die, they're like ISIS, right? They're here for a while and they get wiped out, right? The ideologies that last as long as the Islamic Republic of Iran have, they're a lot more strategic, and they have been very good at the tactics and the maneuvering they have been doing around the Middle East. They have outmaneuvered the United States in the Middle East. They have outmaneuvered Israel in the Middle East, and they have definitely outmaneuvered Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. Like, these people are not just about survival; they're about increasing their power, and they have been, with the limited resources that they have compared to all the powers around them, they have done a very good job, unfortunately, right? So you can't underestimate them. These people are not like, let's just go down. No, they're not like that. They pretend that they're like that, but they're all about increasing their power.
All right, so they're powerful people who'll send the pawns off to die. But right. They themselves, do you think they're having an oh shit moment? Do you think the idea that we took Soleimani out and we have made that capability or that tactic, we put it on the table? Do you think the higher ups in Iran right now are, looking up going, hey, I don't want to be next? Do you think it's given them a moment of pause?
Well, it might have benefited them in a bizarre way, and I don't know. But to tell you how it has benefited them, I need to also give a little bit more background about the different ideologies in Iran. Okay, do you want to?
Yeah, can I go there? Take me to school, man. We've got the time, so educate me.
So when I I grew up, in Iran when I was a kid, our understanding of Iranian people was very binary, right? There was just, we had this understanding that the Iranian people are either Group A or Group B. And what is Group A? Group A was the group that I grew up in, are these people that are either non-religious or hate Islam. All right, either they don't care about Islam that much, or they absolutely hate Islam, or even if they consider themselves Muslim, they hate the mullahs. They don't really do that much religious stuff. They hate the Islamic Republic. They think they're the worst thing that has happened to their country. And they are very nationalistic. They love they keep romanticizing the Persian Empire, the pre-Islamic Iran, the glorious kings and Zoroastrians. If you go to their home, they have Zoroastrian symbols. They have like necklaces and stuff like that. Again, to different degrees, some of them more, some of them less. If you go to parties and stuff, they drink alcohol and they swear at the mullahs and they make jokes about them. And that's one camp. And the other camp is the more religious camp. They pray. Some of them pray all the time. Some of them only remember that they're Muslim during Ramadan, and they only pray during Ramadan, and then they forget again. But they have some allegiance to the Islamic Republic. Those were, again, that's a simplistic view, but that's the binary understanding that we had. You had the religious, loyal to the government, and the nationalists that think, and the nationalists were, hated the Arabization of the Iran and all of that, right? So, but then as time went by, either we realized that things look there's a little bit of gray area in between. I don't know if it was always like this, or the gray area that we're noticing is a new thing, or we were just too stupid not to see it when I was a kid, right? But what is the interesting thing that is happening is that, and this government is also getting more mature in the past 40 years to realize this, is that there's something between these two groups that unites them. And what is that? What are the things that unites them? There's two things. One is their hatred for Arabs. Okay, so Iranians, a lot of Iranians will hate me saying this, but this is fact. Iranians are extremely racist. And the number one race that they hate the most are the Arabs. And if you look at the religious Shias in Iran, their narrative for their anti-Arab is the anti-Arabism, especially Gulf Arabs, right? Maybe not like Syrian Arabs or Lebanese Arab, but Gulf Arabs, is that the Shias curse them for being Sunni rather than Shia. Like that's their source of hatred. And the nationalists, they hate them for being Arab. It's just a race, especially because they think it was their fault that they brought this disease to Iran, which is called Islam. They ruined our glorious Persian Empire. The Arabs came and they attacked Iran, and the Iran has never been the same ever since, right? They want to go back to the Sassanid Empire back before the Arab invasion, right? So that's something that unites them. So, and another thing that unites them is that they both want glory and power and increasing the size of the Persian, the nationalists will say the Persian Empire, and the religious people will see the Shia Brotherhood or whatever religious nonsense that you call it. And the interesting thing is that if you look at all the places in the Middle East that is mostly Shia rather than Sunni, and if you look at the places that the Sassanid Empire was ruling over before the Arab invasion, they match perfectly, right? So to a lot of these nationalists that either hate Islam or don't care about Islam, some of them secretly, and now more recently, some of them more openly, they kind of enjoying the Islamic Republic becoming more powerful or showing a little bit more of an influence. And some of them are now openly saying, like, we're willing to look past the fact that these guys are Muslim or religious because, we're kicking butts, right? This is great. And
so they are willing to hitch their wagon to a religion or ideology that they may not like for the greater purpose of seeing a solidified, more powerful Iran. Exactly.
And they are more, this new group of people is growing faster than ever, which is amazing because these are people that really hate Islam and yet they're supporting the Islamic Republic.
Well, let me stop you. I mean, What's the attitude about the United States among the common everyday person in Iran? Do they hate us?
Anybody that gives you an answer to that about the Iranian people, they're talking out of their ass, right? Because there's many different views on this, right?
So it's not. We can at least start by saying it's not a unified hatred of the United States. There are those sympathetic to.
I've seen people that are saying, Trump, please come nuke Tehran because the rest of us, at least we could live without the mullah. They say we prefer, like there are people that are begging Trump to come attack Iran. There are people that hate Trump. There are people that say, like, you know what, we hate the Islamic Republic and we want them to fall, but it has to be done by the people without any foreign intervention. So there's all kinds of attitudes among Iranian people, right? All kinds of views. And the interesting thing is that all of these people claim that they're the majority, right? So, but there is no reliable polling. So anybody that tells you that this is the majority view, they're just making it up. Because nobody can tell what the majority view is right now. And you can't go by Twitter polls, because like people keep putting Twitter polls, because every time there's a Twitter poll, the people that are following that Twitter account are going to be mostly in line with his or her ideology, right? So if you're an so again, that's not a scientific way of polling, and there hasn't been any scientific way of polling, right? But I can tell you that most people exaggerate the people on their side. So the people that they want the Islamic Republic, the Iranians that want the Islamic Republic to fall, they think like the mullahs have less than 1% support, zero, close to zero. Like all the ones that are supporting them, they just need the money because they're poor. Everybody is against the Islamic Republic. And there's the people that do support the Islamic Republic. They say like, oh no, these protesters against the Islamic Republic, they're just a bunch of hooligans. They don't represent most of the country. So, but how many is the actual number? Nobody knows.
But you can take away from that it's a splintered topic. And opinions varied. Tell me how oppressed the Iranian people are. I mean, I've been reading about the uprising, right? They got hundreds dead. We got thousands wounded. We got even more thousands imprisoned. What's going on over there, man?
So again, this is relative. How oppressed they are relative to who, right? So they're oppressed enough that they can't say stuff against the government, right? Like publish against the government. They can't. If I can't go out in the street, okay, maybe if there's a lot of people out there, then I have the safety of numbers. But if I go out and publish a book and say Khamenei should be removed from the government, I could get a death sentence. So, like for example, let me give you an example. There was this teacher, school teacher in Iran, that he came out and told his class that Prophet Yunus, what's Yunus in English? What's the prophet that was swallowed by a fish?
Jonah. Yeah.
Jonah, yes. Yunus in Arabic.
I like Yunus better. Let's tell the story with Yunus from now on. Dude. I'm sorry. Go ahead. The prophet Yunus.
Prophet Yunus. He told his class that he doesn't think that this story is real. That maybe it's symbolic or whatever, but he doesn't think it's real. So this is a man that didn't tell his class like fuck Muhammad or anything like that. He didn't say God is not real. He didn't say that Islam is is a fucked up religion or anything like that. He just said this story in the Quran about Prophet Yunus. He doesn't think it's a real story. You know what happened to him?
What happened to him?
He was executed
for contradicting the scriptures.
Yeah, he just said he doesn't think this is a real story, right? So that's pretty extreme, right, in my view. When
Iran executes the American contractor on charges of spying, there's no reason to trust Iran that he was a spy, right? I mean, they'll kill anybody for any reason. And can I make that connection there?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Results may vary based on where you are, and, so I was arrested once when I was in Iran for the crime of being in a car with a girl, right? So they stopped my car and they said, "This girl, is she your sister?" I said no. They said, "Is she your cousin?" I said no. Like, they said, "Are you related in any way?" I said no. And they're like, "Well, then you're arrested." I'm like, shit. Honestly, until that moment, I didn't know this could actually happen to people. I heard about it, but I didn't know how common it was. So I was arrested. I was taken to the police station. And this guy in the police station keeps like, telling me how bad I am, and this is not good. You have to be a good Muslim. And he was lecturing me. And I was like this rebellious teenager kind of person at that time. And so I get so tired of him like lecturing me. So I tell him, you know what, these being a good Muslim and all the stuff that you're telling me, these rules don't apply to me. And he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "All these rules don't apply to me." And he's like, why wouldn't it apply to you? I'm like, "Well, because I'm not a Muslim anymore. I left Islam." And he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, so these rules apply to other people, but they don't apply to me because I'm not a Muslim." And he was looking at me, and his eyes was like wide open. He was shocked. And then he told me, "Listen to me, little shit. I could destroy your life right now with my pen."
Now, I wondered if that would put you in greater danger. You say, "I no longer believe in Allah and the Quran," right?
So he said, I could take away your life right now with my pen. Don't you ever repeat that to anyone ever again." So I actually think I really like this. I appreciate this guy because he was being a dick to me for a while. But I think when I said that, all of a sudden he went from, being like a mean person for arresting me and all that stuff to all of a sudden being worried about my life, right? So I think he thought that if I might have said this to another officer, I would be executed, right? Because you can't, the law in Iran, if you leave Islam, the punishment for that is execution, right? And he scared the shit out of me. And I think he might have saved my life because when I became an atheist, when I was still in Iran, I was like pretty open. I was like telling people left and right when I could. So, and I think when my mom came to bail me out and take me home, he took my mom to another room and he told my mom as well. Like he said, "I'm not going to repeat what this guy told me, but you better take him home and you better tell him to never say that again because your son is going to get himself killed." And I remember sitting in the car and my mom came and sat in the car and she told me like, "What the hell did you tell him?" And I was like, just drive.
Yeah, let's put this behind. All right, so we're not talking about a culture of free expression. We're not talking about a liberated, enlightened culture, right? I mean, a lot of people are under boot in the country of Iran. Right. So do they respond, I mean, at the governmental level, when they're funding and fueling terrorist and terroristic activities? Is strength the only response, like military strength? Can they be reasoned with? What's the move forward? I really forgive the broad question. I'm not asking you to fix the world, but just a perspective. I mean, how do we approach this stuff?
I mean, this is not easy, but let me give you more context where I was going to give you some more context before I answer this question.
Give me some more context. Okay.
Yeah, because I was telling you that the people, about the unity, and where I was getting at was if you look at recently the videos that are coming out of Iran, the number of people that showed up for Qasem Soleimani's funeral was astronomically higher than anybody predicted, even the supporters of the Islamic Republic. And if you look at the images, they're not all the religious type. A lot of them seem a little bit like also the kind of clothing and the type of people that are not usually supporters of the Islamic Republic. So Qasem Soleimani, again, some people say this is propaganda. All of these people were forced by the government to come out. The numbers of people that came out is so high because the government had other strategies before to force people out to come protest as well, but the numbers have never been this high. This was unbelievable number of people that showed up. Like everybody is shocked. So it seems like Qasem Soleimani has managed to capture the inspirations of not just the religious people in Iran, but also some other group of people. And again, the reason why this is interesting, the reason why he has managed to do that is because of that appeal to strength, to military might, to bringing back glory and might to Iran, which, some people. So, and Qasem Soleimani.
Now, hang on.
Yeah,
forgive the interruption, but I sort of have to interrupt you because you're a host. So you think to a degree that this type of thing triggers an in-group solidarity, right? He was an asshole, but he's our asshole, and you took him out, right? And so this has a unifying effect on even many of the disagreeing factions within Iran.
Right. And again, this is not, I don't agree with the Iranians that do this, because this guy was definitely a terrorist. And a lot of people say that, like I remember I was watching Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk, and he was like saying, Shias are not the terrorists, Sunnis are the terrorists, because like he's 9/11 and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they're all Sunni, which is a very stupid thing to say in my opinion, because the Sunnis terrorists, because it's the Sunnis that mostly attack Westerners, right? But the Shia terrorist attacks are mostly against the Sunnis, right? So if you think that Sunnis are mostly the terrorists, it's because you have a Western perspective, because you think that somebody is a terrorist only if they come after Westerners, right? All the civilians that Soleimani killed, like this guy, so a lot of Westerners are trying to say even Kyle Kulinski is trying to make it like, oh, this guy went after ISIS. He's like almost making excuses as if this guy is a hero, because he did kill a lot of ISIS people. Soleimani had won a lot of battles against ISIS. Like Iraq will still be under ISIS right now if it wasn't for Soleimani and his proxies, right? But they are not just anti-ISIS or anti-Al-Qaeda. They're anti-Sunni as a whole, right? These people, Soleimani's proxy groups around Iraq and Syria, they went after Sunni civilians, and a lot of innocent civilians were killed, but for the accusation of being ISIS or ISIS sympathizers, right? And the number of, again, this is not just an American thing. So the Americans are trying to show how bad Soleimani was because of the number of Americans that he might be responsible for killing. And the Iranians are doing the same thing. They're saying like, oh, look, Soleimani is a monster, but look at how many Iranians he's responsible for killing. But the main people that Soleimani is responsible for killing are neither Iranian or American. They're Sunni civilians outside of Iran, and also a whole bunch of Afghan children that this guy, his proxy groups, the Fatimian proxy group in Afghanistan, sent as child soldiers, Afghan child soldiers, to go fight for Iran's interest in Iraq and Syria and other places for something that is not even their country. They're Afghans, child soldiers. The reports that I've seen, they say more than 5,000 children have died because of this, Afghans. So yeah, this guy was a monster. So again, when I say a lot of Iranians had sympathy towards this, I'm not supporting that view. But this is why Trump's tweet was such a disaster. Because
which tweet are we talking about?
The tweet that
we have an arsenal of tragic tweets to choose from. Help me out, right. Okay?
This was the worst, okay? And a lot of people don't understand how damaging this was for United States interests. This tweet was the worst one. Remember we said that Trump said that we have 52 sites in Iran that we're going to attack?
Yes.
You know what he said? He said cultural sites, right? Yeah. Because for the non-religious or anti-religious nationalist, Persian Empire, Zoroastrian, all that stuff, people in Iran, for those kind of people that are not Islamic, you know what is sacred to them? For them, it's not the Quran that is sacred to them. It's not Muhammad. It's not Imam Mahdi or Hussein or Vilayat Faqih, all that religious stuff. That is not sacred to them. For them, it's the pre-Islamic Iranian culture, is the Persepolis next to Shiraz, or the Shahnameh even after Islam, even the stuff that is not Islamic but is the Iranian culture. That's the sacred stuff to them, right? And for a long time, the religious authorities, actually not for a long time, more recently, they have been trying to now convince these group of people, like, look, are the enemies of the Islamic Republic, they're not just the enemy of the Islamic Republic, they're the enemy of Iran. So if you look at the United States propaganda machine, they're trying to go to Iranian people and say, like, look, we're not against the Iranian people. We're against your government. We're in support of the Iranian people against the Islamic Republic. But the Islamic Republic are saying, like, no, these people are not just against us. These people are against the nature of Iran as a whole, right? And you guys are included. I couldn't believe, I was listening to a speech of Khamenei, which is the supreme religious leader, and his tune in the past few years is changing a little bit. He was saying, like, look, it's not about religion, right? These people are against Iran. And I couldn't believe it because the supreme religious leader of Iran was saying this not about religion. So they're recognizing that a whole bunch of Iranian people are never going to support them in a religious way. So you have to try to appeal to something else, something deeper, something more Iran-focused rather than Islam-focused, right? And they have been trying to sell that now to the other people that are not very religious. And Trump just gifted to the Islamic, with that tweet, Trump just gifted that to the Islamic Republic because he said we're going to come after your cultural side. And a lot of Iranians that are not religious like, what the hell do you mean? What cultural sites, right? So a lot of Iranian Trump supporters who want Trump to come save them were going around on Twitter and social media trying to do damage control. They were trying to go out and say, like, look, he doesn't mean like purse police. He means like the
cultural
Islamic,
military sites.
The Islamic cultural sites. It's like he's going to take out the Islamic seminary places in Qom. That's what he means.
So instead of saying I'm going to come after your key military targets. Right. In many ways, Trump was saying, I'm coming after you as Iranians. I'm coming after your culture. And that caused many of the people who were on the fence or moderate or who were not religiously motivated, who weren't theocrats, who weren't even Islamic. But it caused them to perhaps put a wall up against the intervention by the West.
Yeah, I mean, the Islamic Republic was on full PR mode after that. Like, see? We're telling you guys, these guys are not just against us religious folks. They're against everything Iranian. We were telling you this for the past few years, and now he's proving that. So this was such a huge gift to the Islamic Republic. So that was such a bad PR move by Trump.
We've got sort of I'll call it a tepid military response by Iran. Right now, everybody's saying that we're de-escalating. They're talking about how nobody wants war, etc. Right. What do you think, Armin Navabi? What happens now? And what do you think we should do now?
I really do think that Trump doesn't want war. Like, again, if you listen to people like David Pakman or Kyle Kulinski, they think Trump really wants war, right? But I think Trump doesn't want war because Trump's base is different from like Bush's base. These are not your average Republicans, like normal Republicans. These are different kind of Republicans. These are, Trump could get away with many things and his base would support him. But I think this is the red line for his base. The main promise that his base was banking on for electing him was not to get mixed with wars outside of the United States, right? So, and I think Trump knows that about his base. When he attacked Assad's air base, in Syria, his base turned on him. His most loyal followers turned on him. And that was a very small attack. So this is a red line. I think that, like, a lot of people say, like, oh, Bush, when he went to war with Iraq, that was a re-election campaign for Trump, and it worked. Yeah, but just because it worked for Bush, that doesn't mean it's going to work for Trump. The Trump's base is different. So I really don't think Trump wants a war, and I don't think Iran's government doesn't want a war. I mean, that would be suicidal. This is why I was so surprised when the first fake news came out that when the attack by Iran on United States base in Iraq, they came out that a whole bunch of Americans were killed. And I thought this is so out of character for the IRGC, the Islamic Republic's, the Sepah Pasdaran in Iran, because because they are usually a lot more patient and a lot more calculated than this. For them to take out a base and take out a whole bunch of Americans, to me, seems so out of character, so like a Trumpy thing to do, and suicidal. Like if Iran just takes out a whole bunch, because remember, until recently, Iran and United States never been directly at each other. They've just been using different pawns against each other. This is the first time that United States took out an actual Iranian citizen like Qasem Soleimani. And Iran, for the first time, so usually the missiles that come from Iran towards American interests never came out of Iran itself. It was always been out of Iranian proxies towards American interests. This is now the first time that we're saying after 40 years that the Iranian missiles out of Iran is hitting American assets. So this is a whole new level of escalation. But an escalation that didn't involve any Americans, right? Because if it did, I don't know how could America just ignore that and not go to full-on war with Iran, which would be suicidal for Iran. So given that now it seems like, again, the news might change again, it seems like Iran warned America, like leaked the information that we're going to attack this base so that the Americans could remove their soldiers. It shows that Iran doesn't want to go to war. And I think that you can see that Trump also... If Trump, when Trump doesn't want to go to war because, not just because of his base, but because Trump had all the excuses he could need to go to war with Iran with the attack on the embassy, right? But they, instead of going out attacking now Iran directly, go out full-on military conflict, they took out one guy. Which is one Iranian, I mean, not just one guy. There were a bunch of Iraqi there that died with Soleimani that nobody talks about. Again, we should talk about that because Iraqi in the middle are like, hey, you guys are both killing our citizens as well. And nobody, it's very interesting because when Iran's missiles hit the base, United States base in Iraq, everybody was checking how many Americans were killed, how many Americans were killed. And nobody was asking, wait, how many Iraqis was killed? And even when the numbers started people reporting about the Iraqis that were killed, nobody cared. It doesn't matter how many Iraqis were killed because that's not going to start a conflict. The only thing that mattered was how many Americans were killed. Because that's, again, and the Iraqi government that we have right now is pathetic because they are just letting Iran do whatever the hell it wants. Because remember, they had such a strong reaction to America when Americans attacked Soleimani on Iraqi soil. The Iraqi government wait, this is not your home. You can't just run around and just kill people in our country. We're going to remove your permission so that you're going to have to take your soldiers back, right? Again, they can't really do that because they're not a real government right now. They're, they have to vote in a real government. But that's what they said. At least they took a strong position. But now when Iran is attacking American bases in Iraq, they had nothing. They say nothing to Iran, which shows who the real masters are. The real masters are the Iranian government, right? Because they didn't have the same response to the Iranian government, right? And again, if Iraq is successful to remove Americans out of Iraq, then they're not going to be able to remove Iran out of Iraq. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that Iran will stay. This is going to increase sectarian divisions in Iraq. This is going to help an either ISIS to come back or ISIS-like groups to come back because they're going to be like, look, the Shias are ruling over us and the Sunnis in the parliament, they can't stop them. So armed conflict is the only way that we could save you Sunnis from the Shia oppression. This is going to be a nightmare, right? The best scenario would have been for Americans and Iranians to leave at the same time. But again, a lot of Sunnis and Kurds might say, no, we're not ready to defend ourselves against ISIS groups. We need the Americans here. But again, if you want the Americans there, then the Shias will say, the Shias loyal to Iran will say, well, we'll need Iranian help here to fight against Americans here. So it's a mess. Like, if you ask about a solution, there is no solution. This is going to remain a mess.
Well, let me ask you this then. We're coming close to the end of our time, but let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Some people in my circle say, and because I live in red state Oklahoma, I hear a lot of, well, what the hell are Americans doing over there anyway? And why does what happens in Iran and Iraq and Saudi Arabia, et cetera, why do those things matter to us? It's kind of an insular approach, right? If it doesn't happen inside our borders, why do we care? So I'll pose that question to you, right? Why do we here in the West care about the conflict in the East?
Well, because there's a lot of money to be made from war. That's the short answer.
So, I mean, but you're saying that the reason we are engaged over there is simply because it's part of the war machine? Is it money? Is it oil? Is it something else? I mean, is there a stabilizing force that we in the West are having at all over there? Well,
I mean, only to the extent that stabilizing the things that they have destabilized, right?
I get that. Yeah, we go in and
only to that extent,
drop bombs and then say, "Hey, let's clean up," kind of thing. Maybe it's like,
I mean, it's true. It's true that if Americans leave right away, there's sectarian divisions is going to grow in Iraq, right? But a lot of these sectarian divisions have been grown because of United States influence in Iraq as well, right? So, I mean,
it's a mess. You said
it's a mess. It's a mess.
It's like when Bush 2 goes in and takes out Saddam Hussein under the false pretense of WMDs, which turned out to be not at all the case. And then all of a sudden we leave. There's a huge vacuum, which ISIS then fills, and now we arguably have a worse problem now than we had with Hussein. I mean, that is arguable, but it wasn't a solution, right? We created a tremendous problem.
Right. And actually, this is a good thing, too, if you want a closing note on the whole situation.
Sure, go ahead.
Because even though both the Islamic Republic in Iran doesn't want a war, and I don't think the Trump administration doesn't want a war either, the problem is that they both are in a dilemma, like, because they both are trying to show a strong revenge to their base, to the people that are demanding revenge at home, right? Without making it strong enough to go home, like, look, is this not strong enough for you? Please be happy, but not too strong to force the other side to go to full on conflict. So they both are trying to say, how could I make this very strong but not too strong, right? So, but the problem is that this is such a difficult dance to play, and they both have people because again, the United States government is not just Trump. There's a whole bunch of other people that are influencing Trump's decisions, and the Pentagon and the CIA and a whole bunch of other. That's complicated, and it's the same thing in Iran. Like, there's a whole bunch of competing interests in the Iranian government, and there are elements within both of these governments that really, really want to have a war, especially the people that will make a shit ton of money out of it. And they are powerful. They have lobbying groups, and it's very easy to just change the game a little bit, move, because both United States has a lot of hidden elements in the Middle East, and Iran has it as well. And you could just take advantage of a small miscalculation, or just a misunderstanding, or some lower people at the lower just making a misunderstanding in order, or something could happen that when you're getting so close to a full, like, Iran and United States have never been this close to going to war with each other for the past 40 years, right? So when you get this close to a war, even if both sides don't want a war, it's easy for just something happen for both of them to be forced to go to full-on war with each other, right? And if United States goes to a full-on direct conflict with Iran, the consequences to that will be astronomically higher than the consequences of the Iraq of taking out Saddam. Remember, Saddam, when the United States attacked Saddam was at the weakest it had ever been. Iran's military right now is at the strongest it has ever been. And if you remove that lid, that that kind of worms, the spread. I mean, think about all of the stuff that for the 10 years after removing Saddam, all the shit that United States and every other country had to deal with, about the rise of ISIS, about the refugee crisis, about everything, all how many governments change, about the open borders, the rise of the alt-right in Europe is because of the immigration crisis. Brexit arguably is because of the immigration crisis, right? All of that all of those consequences. Now multiply that times 100. That's going to be the consequences. Like, we're going to have civil war. I don't know. Like, if you remove the Ayatollahs from Iran, you think all the people that were loyal to the Ayatollahs are just going to go home and be like, oh, I guess we're going to have a secular democracy now? No. I mean, if you were worried about Sunni terrorist groups, you have to be 10 times more worried about Shia terrorist groups, because the people that joined ISIS and Al-Qaeda, like, who are they? These people were just like a whole bunch of young people that had never seen a war, just grabbed a weapon and told them, like, yeah, shoot that way, or just put these on your chest and go blow yourself up. Those are, but if you look at the people that are joining that are part of this Shia, military groups, or these proxies of Iran, or Iran's military itself, if you remove the Ayatollahs, what's going to happen to all these people? These people are way more funded, they're way more organized, they're a lot more trained, and they have a lot of experience in a lot of wars. The war with Saddam, war with support of Assad, war against Israel in support of Hezbollah. These people know what they're doing. They're not just your average terrorists. And you unleash that. Right now they're a state. But if you remove the head of the state, now you turn the army into a whole bunch of different terrorist groups. That's the effect of that is not just going to stay in the Middle East. I mean, you should care about it even if it just stays in the Middle East, because a whole bunch of innocent people are going to die in I don't know how many decades of civil war. But if you're not humane enough to care about people wherever they are, you should still care, because this is going to show up at your door somehow. Because this is going to be such a chaotic mess that you're going to feel it one way or another.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. You see the nationalists versus the globalists sort of an attitude. Like, some people think, well, if it's over there, it won't ever affect us. Or maybe some people rationalize that those lives are worth less than ours, or we should care less. And all those I find extremely tragic. One thing we have proven over the last hour is that this stuff will not fit in a 280-character Twitter line. Right? We're talking about centuries of history. We're talking about so much complexity and so many gears in this machine. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to just hear from you, right? Just get another perspective to sort of flesh things out. I look forward to the comment section where people call us warmongers or something for actually, taking a second to not speak about it in binary terms. Right. Again, I don't have any love for Soleimani. A monster. I think the world's a better place without him in it. I hugely distrust. I mean, I don't trust Trump, and I don't trust the government of Iran, right? What happens when a pathological liar gives their word? These are problems. I don't trust the Islamic theocracies that are in play. And I'm like many people, I'm scared about the future. I worry about, you're right. What happens if one person makes one wrong move, and then now we're talking about a full-on shooting war and the loss of lives on every side. And it's just crazy. Is there a resource that you like where we could follow and get information from Iran that's more reliable than another? I mean, I don't know how else to ask the question. So,
well, most of the sources that I follow is in Persian. Like, they speak Persian. So I don't know what.
That's not going to help me.
But you can follow our show at Secular Jihadist.
I buy that. Look, well, let's select the show. You can follow, and I'm sure you guys will be talking about it quite a bit moving forward. Secular Jihadist, and I'll throw a link in the description box. So. Yeah, dude, I appreciate you. I mean, people can agree, disagree. My hope would be that there's respectful discussion about this, right? Responsible, mature, humanistic discussion about what's happening, who the players are, why it matters, and what we might be able to do to navigate this thing. And, I think it all starts with trying to know more. And that was my desire today. So, Armin, I appreciate you so much. And we'll talk real soon, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. For a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming free thought events and conventions, log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.